On this week's show, we'll be discussing Call of Duty's impact on Game Pass, Arkham Shadow reviews, and Mario is getting an MMO on Switch too. All that and much, much more on this week's GamerGuild Podcast. Good game, everyone. Welcome back to the GamerGuild Podcast, your weekly show where we round up all the week's video game stories and news for your listening or viewing pleasure right here on video game on youtube.com/GamerGuildTV and up there in the digital cloud on your podcast preference of choice. Your podcast players this week are none other than myself, Mr. Richie, who is slightly ill and very tired, and Mr. Chris. How are you?
Hello, gamers. I'm good. I'm well slept. We had the clocks rolled back, so welcome to British Greenwich Mean Time again, where we get an hour's back sleep. The nights seem ever so darker, but for this one day and this one day alone, I feel well rested. Unlike you.
Yeah, I woke up quite early anyway, and after 2 days of manual labour. I'm not used to manual labour. This is not a normal thing in my life. But
is this your building with cats?
Yes, my building with cats. So if you want to know more context of that, head over to our Discord. The links are in the description. But I am building myself a new studio.
A studio?
Well, I'm calling it an office, but realistically, it's more of a studio. It's this room in a different house, basically.
Are we talking like padded walls and everything like that? You're going all in on it?
No, it's not going that flash. Just a new office in a different house.
See, and all of our wonderful guild members contribute to that. They don't really.
No, you really don't. Yes, all of our wonderful guild members contribute to my girlfriend's mortgage.
Yes, thank you. This is why we really started this whole gig 5 years ago, was to fund your girlfriend's mortgage.
Yeah, but I'm basically slowly moving in with her, so I needed to build an office in her house so I can actually pack up this room and set it back up somewhere else.
I mean, if she doesn't notice by now that you're bringing timber and plasterboard and stuff into the building, then
she knows. She's got halves. So I've got quite lucky there. I mean, it isn't her house after all, so she's getting an extra room. So, but that's why I'm a bit tired. But took the day off today from building to record a podcast. So, Chris, you said you were well rested. Have you been playing much?
I'm well rested and I'm playing games. It's I've hit a rich vein of form. So now Star Wars Outlaws is platinumed out the way last week. Now we no longer have Assassin's Creed Shadows at the back of the year. I've got this like flexible time between probably now and Christmas with some time off work as well, to kind of dive into some stuff. So yeah, I've been all over the place playing a multitude of things. I've gone back to, I mean, even just this week alone, I've gone back to Space Marine 2, which I'm thoroughly enjoying. It's so much so, Richie, actually, in fact. So much so, I picked up the Warhammer 40k Ultimate Guide because it showed up on my Amazon recommendation as you do, and it's like, damn, these things are cool, man. Like the world of 40k is just, look how sick all these things look. Sorry, audio listeners, but yeah, it's just the Space Marines and the history of it and the Emperor.
It's like the codex that you need to know how to paint and assemble your army and how the rules and stuff.
This is kind of like an all-encompassing thing that covers like the history of Warhammer, like as the brand and the shops, but then also into the history of the Empire and the Xenos threat, and it kind of weaves the tabletop game stuff and the history of the company and the kind of wider story into one. So when I was looking, it said this is like the ultimate guide for newcomers. So I thought, well, actually, I'm kind of like a lapsed Warhammer person. Used to paint the figures like years and years ago. But having getting back into the game and playing Space Marine 1 on the channel, full Let's Play up right now, and getting back to this, it's just such a fun game. It's such a video game. Like, you are going room to room, killing stuff, but it's just opened my eyes up to being... And I think I've got that voice in my head telling me that because Henry Cavill's working on a massive project, this is like the right time to get in the door.
This is actually maybe one for our audience. Is there a proper, like, Warhammer 40k tabletop video game? So basically, the tabletop game, but in video game format.
That's a good question.
With everything from building your army to painting it, because that could be awesome. I mean, it might harm your sales of the actual figurines, but...
Potentially. I know they've had like RTSs and stuff. Dawn at War. Dawn of War.
I mean, very true to the tabletop game though, rather than an RTS that uses the law of the world,
like a turn-based movement one.
Dice rolls works.
I'm not too sure. It's a good question for our audience out there. But yeah, Space Marine 2, absolutely loving it. I haven't done any of the online stuff yet. I'm just doing the campaign. And it is just ultimate like video game fun. So yeah, highly recommend it if people just want to get engrossed in like a new world with just some cool technology, monsters, creatures, lore, history. If you're into that kind of high fantasy stuff with like a futuristic spin from the 41st millennium, look into it. Highly recommend it. I've been playing some other games as well, which we'll probably get into as part of the show and the news. Alan Wake 2, The Lake House. Full live stream of that entire DLC is up now, about 3 and a bit hours of it. Just in time for spooky season. They have some monsters in it, Richie, which I must say are some of the best video game kind of, not jump scares, but like just the, if you remember Resident Evil, remember the blob monsters that came out the wall on 7?
Oh yeah, the fungus stuff.
So in Alan Wake, you'll actually remember from your playthrough of Alan Wake 1, you know Dr. Hartman in like the kind of lodge where it's like a care home that you play through? There was a gentleman who was in there who was painting pictures. And the power of the lake, basically, it feeds on creativity. So that's why Alan Wake's writings come to life in the game. This character who does paintings is the DLC in this one, and his paintings essentially come out of the painting, and they like are these like long, slender man, amorphous blobs that are just made up of like color, and they move around. They can jump back into paintings and jump out at different parts in the area. And the music and the eeriness and the gorgeous like detail that the Northlight engine Remedy used brings to life, and it was just really fun, solid 3.5 hours of gameplay that once again connects the Remedy universe. But we'll get more into that later on in the actual episode because there's some news off the back of that DLC, and of course Call of Duty Black Ops as well. Did a live stream for launch of that using cloud gaming, but we'll get into that with the fest star of the news. So yeah, all over the place playing things. I'd say I've not stopped, but I have. I've done adult things as well. But yeah, how about yourself?
I have been busy doing adult things, as I said. Well, it's kind of adult things. Building a new room in a house is very an adult thing to do, but I'm doing it to house all my gaming and music shit. So a very not adult thing. So I'm doing something very adult to encompass my hobbies. I have found a bit of time to game, and I have rolled credits on Echoes of Wisdom.
Hey. Well done. And what would your final kind of summary / rating be for this game? Is it up there with the best?
I'm not sure it's up there with the best Zelda games of all time, but that's very lofty. I think, though, it is my game of the year so far.
Interesting.
And we're in end of October, so there's not much. I might get one more. I might have one more big game in me this year.
I think you and the girlfriend are going to squeeze Astrobot in before the year's out.
I don't know. To be honest, I don't think we're going to be buying it this year.
Christmas. Santa can bring many things, Richie.
Are you buying me Astrobot for Christmas?
I'm not Santa. Depends if it's on your list and if you've been a good boy.
I'm not the Santa of many pixels.
You're not a good
That's
boy.
That's a lie. Oh. But yeah, absolutely loved it from start to finish. I do want the 100% it. I'm probably... There's no actual like 100% counter or trophies because it's a Nintendo game. But it's kind of, I still have basically some mini games that I just need to finish off. Literally two heart pieces to get. And a few mic crystals, and then I'm pretty much done. So I reckon maybe about 5 hours left in it.
Nice.
But from start to finish, I've loved it. And the fact that I actually want to go and get that 100%, even though roll credits, pretty much done, shows that I just want to keep playing that game. But yeah, it's just one of them. The charm just never went away from it. You know, it's good. Using all the different echoes. I've seen some comments online saying, "Oh, the echoes get boring. You just stand there, you just summon an echo and stand there." It's like I didn't really find that. I found it more like almost strategic, or more like almost like Pokemon, where you're picking which echo to use for certain situations.
Yeah.
And then you could use your other abilities to like kind of participate in the combat rather than just standing there twiddling your thumbs. But I really just enjoyed that game from start to finish.
Yeah, it's always interesting how Nintendo kind of they always hit the stride out of nowhere, because I don't think when this game was announced, it was only earlier this year, right? It was kept under wraps very well, and then out of nowhere you've got arguably the best Zelda game where you don't play as Link.
I think it might be the only one. There may be some older ones or something, but
I've
it's
seen a few
definitely
articles.
the best Zelda game that you don't play as Link.
I've seen a few articles going around highlighting that like things like Pokemon could learn quite a lot from Echoes of Wisdom, saying that they deal with the echoes really, really well, whereas I think Pokemon's became a bit conflated with how many Pokemon they are and everything now. And without going down that rabbit hole, there's, I think,
I don't know. I kind of like Pokemon to be its own thing and figure out what a modern Pokemon game is rather than just copying off something else. I think it's why I didn't like the Let's Go games. If they feel like they're very much watered down what a Pokemon game is. So I've never touched the Let's Go games because I just looked at them and went, that's not Pokemon to me. It's not what I want from that sort of game. But because with Zelda being, it's very much more of an action game rather than an RPG, which Pokemon is. So you'd have to change the genre. But I think it does probably rate quite highly in the list of all time Zelda games, to be honest.
You'll have to do a tier ranking system.
You're getting into, it's definitely in the conversation, but you're getting into very much the subjective decision making rather than objective stuff, where a different person would rank them differently. But it's probably if you don't like the ecosystem, then you're not going to like the game. Simple as that. But it's interesting how they keep iterating on it, because with things like Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild being very, very open and more sandboxy, Echoes of Wisdom kind of looks at that and goes, how does that translate to the more traditional top-down style of Zelda? So you can use your different echoes in different ways to kind of platform round challenges to solve puzzles. And it's like, he's an arsenal of tools. You figure out how to handle this puzzle. And there's no real right or wrong way to do them.
Yeah, it's interesting how Nintendo always seem to be able to reinvent the same franchise into different genres. Like we've seen it with Mario for so long now. You get everything from a kart racer to a party game to a story 2D platformer, and this seems to be, I guess, another string to their bow when it comes to Zelda. Now, would you be totally content getting a Link-based game and then a Echoes of the Wisdom-esque game interstitially every other couple of years, like in between?
Yeah, well, I kind of like having the big open world Zelda games. I think Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom for me were too open and sometimes lacked direction and a bit too sandboxy, so you spend way too much time messing on, especially in Tears of the Kingdom, building massive contraptions rather than getting invested in the story of the game. Echoes of Wisdom, I think, was a lot more balanced in that sense. You had that sense of creativity and agency as a player to decide how you want to tackle puzzles within more restricted limitations. But I think this is proof that Zelda can helm a game herself.
Absolutely.
So I'd like to see them go, right, we've done the top-down version with Zelda. I'd like to see them actually be bold and go, we're going to make a 3D Zelda game, full 3D Zelda game, featuring Zelda as a main, because this is a mainline title as well. Yep. It's not a weird side thing. It very much feels like a main Zelda title. And it does add to the lore as well. It deepens the lore that little bit further. I'd like to see what they could do with Zelda in the full open world.
I think a lot of people would as well. It's making for a very interesting surprise addition to the Game of the Year conversations as well.
Don't go as big as something like Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild, though, because I think them games are too big for their own good. Other people might disagree, but yeah.
Getting conflated. Interesting. Well, glad you finished it. What's next then?
I need to go back to Jedi Survivor because I at least want to roll credits on that.
That poor game.
I know, but Echoes of Wisdom just took my attention away.
I know. I feel like you and the Star Wars Jedi games in particular have always had.
I like them.
Late, I
like them a lot. I just don't love them in the way I'd love something like Zelda. So when I'm playing it, I'm really enjoying it. Then Zelda drops, and then I'm just like, that's all about Zelda. I do want to go back and finish it though.
Is there anything else on your radar for the rest of the year that might pull you away?
No, I'm not going to let anything pull me away until I've at least rolled credits on Jedi Survivor. Ideally, I'd like the platinum as well, to be honest. I'll see what I'm like for time, but I think next in my line, as it stands, is Metaphor ReFantasio.
Oh, that's a commitment.
But I haven't bought it yet, so I'm waiting. It's also a financial decision as well. It might be with me literally buying timber and stuff. Like, money isn't infinite, so...
but money does come from trees, or it used to anyway when it was paper.
Yeah, now it's polymer. But you know what, Chris? I think it's time that you introduce us to the Gamer Guild merch store.
Do you want me to actually introduce it? Or?
Yeah, go for it. I realised we're both wearing Gamer Guild merch. It's like, let's plug the store.
Yeah, why not get it in there? Yeah, if you, I was going to say if you're a member, you don't have to be a member. Head over to our GamerGuild website. I don't know what the link is. There's currently a free delivery that's kicking off from the 30th to the 3rd. So if you do order anything, there's one of those in the pipeline. And if you want to hold off even further, because I know we always say this thing, there's a couple of sales coming leading up to Christmas. November in particular has some pretty sweet ones. Watch out for between the 8th and the 11th. 22% off everything. Don't know why it's 22. It's random. We don't make up them. Then the 20th to the 24th, there's 15% off everything. But wait for it. On the 29th of November, just the one day, is that Black Friday by any chance? Is the 29th Black Friday? You're on mute, but it possibly is.
It is a Friday.
That'll be it then. It's the last Friday of November. So Black Friday, 30% off everything in the store. So again, we're terrible at promoting this merchandise store, but if you are looking for some Gamer Guild swag, hold off until the 29th. I'm giving you over a month's notice here to browse, peruse, pick what you want. 30% off. That's brilliant. Once again, I'll be tempted to go back in and see if there's anything else we can get. But yeah, go check it out. Pick some swag. We might get something special in there in time for the festive season. Christmas jumper. What would a Gamer Guild Christmas jumper look like? Just the normal logo with a Santa hat covering the podcast thing. Mike.
Maybe we should tweak the logo for the Christmas period and do that. Maybe that's something we'll do in the new year. We'll start coming up with some festive variants of the logo.
I mean, we've missed the boat if we're doing it in the new year.
Yeah, but for the upcoming years.
Would you like a Christmas jumper in January?
Yeah.
But yeah, merch store, go check it out. Lots of stuff. And check out our live content from this week because there's been a lot. And if you're a member of the channel, there's a surprise coming imminently for members. Lots of exciting content that's going to be exclusive for you.
Indeed. Now, Chris, would you like to introduce us to the
actual graciously gathered Gamer Guild Gazette, aka the news?
The news. And as always, the news is brought to you by our guild heroes, which you can join for as little as 99p over on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/@GamerGuildTV. Thank you very much for support. You guys are awesome. Chris, you've played Call of Duty Black Ops. What are your thoughts?
It's great. It was never not going to be, but I say go and watch the live stream. I did about 2 hours the other day. Did a bit of campaign, did a bit of zombies, and did a bit of multiplayer. Just want to point out, I won my first game. My return to Call of Duty multiplayer after, I don't know, 7, 8, 9 years maybe. I'm not too sure what it is. And I ended with a positive kill to death ratio, which I was very surprised at. So that only proves that cloud gaming can be competitive.
Retire now.
The latency, the lag didn't do it. But if you're over 30, you can also still be competitive. Whether it was just day one and it was filled with noobs, I don't know. But I'm safely and happily retired now from Call of Duty multiplayer until we jump back in on a proper live stream and I absolutely ruin it game after game. But yeah, in terms of the game itself, it came out to great reviews. It's the best received campaign in quite some time from what I've gathered. Of course, this whole Call of Duty entry is kind of premised by the game. It's the first one to enter Game Pass, so it didn't cost me anything. So I don't know. I've obviously checked it out rather than bought. I wouldn't have bought it otherwise, essentially, which is, I guess, what Microsoft want. Reading from, though, an IGN review, just to give everyone a little bit more context out there. Their review says, an excellent string of missions that offer variety and flexibility come together to make the best Call of Duty campaign in many, many years. Black Ops 6 is a fantastic return to form for the series, allowing the designers at Raven to delve deeper into their bag of tricks and keep you guessing at every turn. It successfully makes each chapter distinct from one another while maintaining a strong level of quality across the board. Packing a thoroughly engaging story that gets better the longer it goes on, it exceeds expectations regarding level design and creativity, showing that when given the time to craft them properly, Call of Duty campaigns still have what it takes to be up there with the best first-person shooters. So that's like an absolute high praise for the campaign. And as you know, you and me are both more campaign single player centric people.
Yeah.
I know a couple of folks now at Discord have been saying the campaign's probably about 8 to 10 hours, so it's not going to overstay its welcome, which is great for me. But what I will say, what I found out after the live stream, coming away from it, the shooting physics and mechanics of Call of Duty, they just have this shit nailed. Like there is a very distinct reason it is the best shooter of all time, and it's just everything just feels so good. Like the sliding mechanics, the cover, the peeking around corners, the feedback from the weapons when you're shooting, the different variety from the suppressed pistol to the assault rifle to the sniper. It all just felt like the sound design was just chef's kiss on point, and it kind of made me like realize, like, have I been missing out on the last 7-8 years? But it really did just pull me into the game, and ever since I finished on the live stream on Friday night, I've just wanted to go back and play more. So I have nothing. The campaign was fun, it was interesting, it looked gorgeous, and again the multiplayer was fun from what I played. The zombies, I'm looking forward to getting into zombies with you and the community a little bit on another stream. Because the zombies it's no longer like level based, it's literally open world. So the longer you survive, you unlock new areas of a town called Liberty Falls, and you just progress through the town to investigate the mysterious goings on. So you know when you would normally like unlock a gate and it would open up like a little mini new sub area, but then the difficulty would ramp up quite a lot, and you would get more weapons.
It's what Redfall wanted to be.
Funnily enough, when it was like around Liberty Falls, I did joke about seeing if we would get some Redfall DLC. Now it's all built in. It's got very similar vibes, but without the poorly implemented multiplayer mechanics. And so if we play together, you basically just go through like different things to unlock new areas. But then there's also portals, which bring in like the otherworldly quirkiness that the Call of Duty do with the Zombies campaign. We don't know where they originate from, but we'll see. And just overall, very, very impressed. And of course, with the benefit of Game Pass, I didn't pay for it, so I don't feel shortchanged in any way. I feel like Game Pass is very much serving its purpose right now.
Yeah, that's where I was going to get to with Game Pass, because for me in Call of Duty, my interest in multiplayer games pretty much fell off a cliff in my mid to early 20s. But before then, I actually used to play a lot of Call of Duty 4 and Call of Duty World at War online, so it's not like I've never been there and got to a decent level. I played on PC, but I just kind of burnt out on the online stuff and as the community started getting more and more toxic, my interest of going back to it just completely wasn't there. But I've always liked the single player campaigns, but it went through a period where I felt the single player campaigns very much became a backseat to the multiplayer. They were no longer really interested in it. They were there because they felt like they had to be there, and that was kind of it. And then when you're paying 60, 70 pounds for a game, and the single player campaign is 5 hours long and feels like the developers are disinterested, which might be harsh, but that's just my impression I got from it. Is like, that is steep financially. I'm not.
Yeah.
So that's why I've never disliked Call of Duty. I've just more been disinterested. It coming to Game Pass is fantastic for me.
Yeah.
For the reasons you just kind of outlined, because it means I can go and play an 8-hour campaign, which feels probably about right for the sort of game it is.
Yeah.
I would maybe push it to maybe 12 hours or something, just to get a bit more bang for the buck in there. But it still is that huge multiplayer camp stuff in there. And then they got zombies and stuff. So there's a lot of fun to be had on Game Pass. And the fact that it isn't costing me anymore is fantastic.
Yeah. It's all just bundled in. There is a deluxe option if you want to pay more, which I think is the Game Pass model, isn't it? They get you in on the base game, and then they hope that the game either does the right thing to encourage you to invest more, or you're just like an absolute diehard fan and you want the top tier deluxe all bundle package. And
I'll be perfectly honest, I don't know what the microtransaction state is in Black Ops 6. There might be tons, there might be basically none, there might be loot boxes. I genuinely have no idea. But,
well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because Warzone kind of supplements that now. Because Warzone is just a continuous entity with season passes and content drops. That's their equivalent of Fortnite. So it's almost like the yearly iteration of the game almost like doesn't need them, because you get your £70, your $70 up front, or you get your Game Pass subscription, and then Warzone's there to supplement the incoming money.
I think Warzone confuses things a bit for me in where
it
how
does,
it stacks, because the Call of Duty standalone annual games, or every other, whatever the frequency of them is, always had a multiplayer that would last the year, then you move on to the next one. Maybe they hang around a bit if you play Modern Warfare versus Black Ops versus Infinite War or whatever different like kind of skews they've got. But then with Warzone, it feels like Warzone could be all of the multiplayer into itself. And they just every time say if Black Ops 6 theoretically could have been, this is just a 10-hour single player campaign, and by buying it you get access to the Black Ops 6 content in Warzone.
Yeah, so this is where I think Activision and by proxy Xbox, Microsoft are trying to get towards, is when you boot up Call of Duty now, so if you install it or you open up the browser through cloud gaming, it actually takes you to like a hub, a Call of Duty hub, where it's called Call of Duty. Even when you download it from the Xbox store onto your console, it's just called Call of Duty. And then all the other entries in the series, like the current gen ones, they're additional downloads that go into the hub. So you start off with a tile screen of like 6 tiles, and it says Black Ops 6, Warzone, Modern Warfare 3, Modern Warfare 2, Advanced Warfare, and it has them laid out like they are individual standalone titles. So I feel like they are getting to that point where, as you said, Warzone is the constant, and then all the early iterations are almost like supplementary to that, but in a way where, because the way games are now is they don't like really age. Like you can go back and play the Modern Warfare remake that they did a couple of years back, and it would play equally as Warzone would if that's what you're currently playing. So I feel like they have kind of got like this brand where now you opt in for Call of Duty or you opt in for Game Pass, and you just get access to the world of Call of Duty with yearly iterations, which will be hopefully a campaign, hopefully some variation on zombies and multiplayer. But it's all encompassed, like Assassin's Creed kind of want to do with that Ubisoft Assassin's Creed Infinity model. Yeah, but it's getting there. That's the thing.
I personally think it makes a lot more sense for Call of Duty because of the multiplayer aspect. Assassin's Creed being predominantly single player games, it's just a weird thing. It's a weird kind of metaverse shit they're trying to do with Call of Duty. Open up a Call of Duty app on your Xbox or your PC or your PlayStation, whatever it is, and then you've got campaigns. There's your Modern Warfare campaign, there's your World War II campaigns, there's your Infinite Wars, there's your Black Ops. So you can just go through them. Then into multiplayer, he's like the individual multiplayers from them games. So you're breaking these games down into the components, and you've got there's your Battle Royale stuff, there's your Team Deathmatch stuff, there's your zombie stuff, your other co-op stuff they've done all the time. Like, what was it in some of them? When they kind of had the challenge-based, like, co-op levels. I can't remember what they were called. Operations, yeah. Something like that. That sounds like it would make a lot of sense for Call of Duty. And then it does kind of, then goes, okay, yeah, every year we're going to bring out a new Call of Duty game. So you go, and so here's your new campaign, here's your new multiplayer, here's your new operations or zombies, whatever the third component of that game is, all into the same Call of Duty app. That works quite well for me.
Yeah, and in this world where we live in with like cross-gen and mobile being a thing, because Call of Duty Mobile's huge as well, they just basically are trying to make that kind of chef's buffet of things of like, look, if you like Call of Duty, it's all here for you. And Game Pass supports that really, really well. I think the benefit for me of this one with the campaign, as you said, is for those who don't know, the studios at Call of Duty. I always thought as a kid growing up, like how they get these games out every single year blows my mind. And then actually you realise that there's actually 3 internal studios that rotate on a 3-year cycle to get these out. There's Raven Software, there is Sledgehammer, and there's Treyarch, who kind of rotate with a franchise each. And Infinity Ward, it's a good point. I think, which one was demoted? One of them was demoted, right, in recent years, like before the full Activision buyout. One of them was demoted, because I know Raven did the campaign for this one. I think Raven might be the one, actually.
I think Sledgehammer was once the Black Ops guys, wasn't it?
This is why it's hard to keep up. But then it was quite laughable booting up Black Ops 6. You see every other support studio mentioned. So Beanox was in there as well, which is the guys who made the Amazing Spider-Man games a couple of years back. And now they've been demoted to software. We know obviously Vicarious Visions, who did Crash Bandicoot remake, Insane Trilogy, and Nitro Racing. They got demoted to a support team and got kind of funneled into it all. And everything has to basically feed the machine that is Call of Duty.
Yeah.
But I think Black Ops 4 was the one that didn't. It dropped the campaign because they were too rushed and they couldn't get it out. And this is the kind of telling tale of video games taking longer to make. Even with all the support studios, a 3-year cycle is not quick enough to turn around a modern day video game of the polish and quality that Call of Duty has become to be known for. So I think it being as part of this universe, I think a shorter campaign that supplements the annual entries and Warzone, I think it makes for, again, if you're into first-person shooters, I don't think you can really go wrong with it. You and me lamented Battlefield 2042 ditching campaign as well. I was really hyped for Battlefield 42, if you remember when we did the podcast.
Yeah.
And then as soon as they came out and announced it doesn't have a campaign, I just went, okay, I'm done. I don't want to pay £70 for just multiplayer. When there's so many multiplayer free experiences out there that don't cost a penny.
That's the thing that always felt weird, because at the time, Warzone was already out. So Warzone, you could go play Call of Duty Warzone for free, or you could pay £70 and play Black Ops. And Call of Duty, in terms of reputation, has a stronger reputation. Black Ops had some cult hits where I think individual Battlefield, sorry, not Black Ops.
I was going to say,
Battlefield.
Wonder where that comparison was going then.
I think there's a couple of Battlefields that fans of first-person military shooters in general would go, Battlefield was better in this year than Call of Duty. But overall, Call of Duty's the top dog. Yeah. So it was a weird decision, I think, to go full price of that.
Yeah, a Battlefield just they never had yearly iterations out as well, so they kind of struggle to keep up with the cadence that Call of Duty manages to hit with that marketing beat every single autumn time, fall. It's Call of Duty season. It's Call of Duty and FIFA, right? When we were kids growing up, it was you would go for the midnight Call of Duty release and you'd go for the midnight FIFA release, and there'd be the two tent poles that would see you through to Christmas and beyond. And with free to play, that's kind of been ripped up, that rule book now. And yeah, Battlefield 1 was praised for its short little vignette campaign stories, and the multiplayer was fun. And then they ditched it all, and you think, right, well, okay. And I think as again, purely single player gamers, I think the campaign is what gets you in. That's where you see your value, and the multiplayer is where you get the legs out of it, where you keep playing it beyond the campaign. But if you take out one of them features, you do have to ask, well, why am I paying £70? And this is, I guess, why we want to get into the Game Pass conversation of, will this pay off for Xbox? This is the big test. This is the ultimate test, in a way, isn't it, for Game Pass? Yes.
I don't think a single game should be the ultimate test, but it's definitely a milestone that the accountants over at Microsoft, not at Xbox, at Microsoft, will be scrutinising the performance of this. This game is under... Actually, unfortunately, I feel a bit sorry for Activision, because this game is under a lot of pressure to deliver. For Xbox financially. So reading from Eurogamer analysts reckon Call of Duty Black Ops 6 could bring up to 4 million new Game Pass subscribers, but with the caveat they might lose 6 million sales. Is that sufficient trade-off? It's hard to know, because yes, you might lose money on Black Ops 6, but over the span of a year, you might gain more money from them Game Pass subscribers.
I'm thinking numbers, right? Because what's because it's not on the base Xbox Game Pass, because they changed the tiers. Remember, where Call of Duty was no longer included in the base one, so it's the core upwards, I think it is. So you're talking £12, £15. So say we go just Ultimate, because you might as well go all in on Ultimate. So for £15, $15 a month, if they're expecting 4 million new members to Game Pass,
you basically need every single one of them new members to have at least 4 months to break even on their sale.
Yeah.
Ideally, if it's 4 months for them to break even, to cover the 6 million loss of sales, you're probably looking maybe at least 6 to 8 months of Game Pass. So if every single one of these 4 million new Game Pass subscribers buys Game Pass for a year, not only is that a huge influx of gamers into the Xbox ecosystem, which is good for Microsoft, because it means they get them people are then potentially playing other stuff, maybe buying hardware, buying new controllers and everything that comes with it. They will potentially make more money. But if say 3 million out of them 4 million buy Game Pass for a month, then after a month lose interest in Call of Duty, so then cancel it, they're in problems. It really comes... It takes the impetus almost out of Microsoft's hand and how down to how fickle gamers can be.
Yeah, it's such a delicate... In a way, it's such a delicate balancing act. But you're right, they're expecting to lose 6 million in actual physical box sales, but gaining 4 Game Pass, which is like, right, well, you're losing a lot up front because they're not paying $70, £70, they're paying $15. But then if you can retain them for that 3 to 4 month break point when it drops over, this is, I guess, where all the hard work they've done with Game Pass over the years needs to come to fruition when people enjoy it enough that they go, well, actually, you know what, while I'm here, by the time that 3-4 month cycle runs out in the new year, we should have the next big entry in the Fest Party dropping. So that'll be south of midnight, and or maybe the next Doom Dark Ages, and or maybe another Forza. So that's where they need them, right? Because like we're in that model. Our subscriptions to 2-year Game Pass is finished.
Yeah.
So if they keep dropping something at the right cadence to keep us in, I see no reason in the near future why I'm going to cancel my Game Pass. But I'm not as fickle as maybe some other gamers are, or maybe some people less willing to share Microsoft's goodwill outside of Call of Duty.
You mentioned Call of Duty and FIFA earlier. There's a lot of gamers out there who they have a console to play them 2 games, and that's it. Which is why I think sometimes we get surprised by the numbers of Call of Duty and FIFA, because we forget how many people who don't really consider themselves gamers just play them.
Yeah,
this is all they play. It's why they have the console. So with this 6 million loss, how many of these are lost on PlayStation as well?
Yeah,
because if it's an even split between losing on PlayStation and on Xbox is quids in there. Because then if they lose 3 million on Xbox and 3 million on PlayStation, but gain 4 million Game Pass subscribers, some of them people who would have traditionally bought on PlayStation have probably bought Xboxes.
Yeah, so you've got your hardware as well. But then there is that ironic thing of they might have lost that on Xbox anyway, but at the same time, on the other side of the coin, the people who buy it on PlayStation 5 are buying top dollar, full price, day one. And if I was Microsoft, I wouldn't even shift on that base price for the PS5 version. I'd put sales on the Microsoft version, lure them in with Game Pass, and keep it full price on PlayStation's ecosystem. Like, why would you ever discount Black Ops 6? Because then the longer it stays at that top dollar price point, the longer Game Pass is going to look more and more lucrative to a consumer of like, oh, well, it is only $14.99. It is only £14.99. Maybe I'll just dive in.
And people go like, if you're someone's like, oh, I really want to play the new Black Ops. I've still got a PS4. You're looking at which one do we go, and you look at something like Xbox All Access. You're committing to 2 years?
Yeah,
we did it. Like
we did,
and well, because Xbox All Access, when at least I haven't checked it recently, but when we did it, it was interest free as well. So it's not like you're paying interest on that. So it's literally just the cost of the console and Game Pass Ultimate split up for 2 years, split over 2 years, which makes it a lot more manageable.
Yeah, it's certainly going to be an interesting one to watch because of like just the sheer amount of money involved and everything. But I mean, I wish them the best in a way because it means we keep getting them. I don't want to get in a world where in a few years' time they go, oh, Call of Duty is on Game Pass, but it's a £30 supplement or something for this year's entry.
Yeah.
Like, I like the way the model is right now because as a consumer, which you, our audience, a lot of listeners and millions of people out there, it benefits you.
If you have to start adding a premium onto games on top of Game Pass Ultimate, it's an admission that the Game Pass Ultimate model doesn't work.
Yeah.
It might work for consumers, but it doesn't work for Microsoft. Because if you then have to start buying games when you're already paying a subscription, really, what's the point of subscription?
Yeah. But I'm sure it's going to sell millions upon millions.
Oh God, yeah! It's probably going to be the highest selling game this year. I reckon easily as well.
Yeah, unless the numbers from Black Myth Wukong in China somehow bump it ridiculously high. Remember that game's at like 15 million or something already?
Yeah,
But it's not Call of Duty. That's right.
But we're talking like very casually of potential swings here, like of people buying this game in like the 4 to 6 million range. So if that's what the swing is, what do you think the core is going to be? It's going to be 10s, 20, 30, 40, 50 million.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see the numbers, because actually, if you take the Game Pass 3-4 million out of there, this might not be the biggest selling game of the year like it usually is. I think last year it got beat, if you remember. It was the first time Call of Duty had been beat in a decade because of Hogwarts Legacy.
Yeah.
Like, out of nowhere. But now you're knocking, I guess, 4 odd million off for the Game Pass buyers. It might miss out again.
But last year was also under the cloud of Activision and Bobby Kotick and stuff, where Bobby Kotick, as far as I'm aware, is still at Activision. Yeah, but now with Microsoft. But I feel like Activision has got a bit more goodwill behind it, because it feels like there's an expectation that they're going to start doing things right again, not taking the consumers for granted, start investing in other IP other than Call of Duty. So it feels like Call of Duty has actually shed a bit of its baggage.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Because, I mean, I know myself, I'm looking at this game just generally more positively because of Game Pass and because it's Microsoft owned than I was when it was under Activision. Because everything about Activision just seemed toxic.
Yeah, well, that's what they want, don't they?
Yeah. What, everything that seemed toxic?
No, better.
Yeah. Talking about better, Chris. Arkham Shadows, the reviews are in. So this is the MetaQuest Batman Arkham game that we've kind of both lamented because it's VR. It's doing quite well critically.
It is. It's one of those where I can't help but look and think this is the best Batman game we've had since Arkham Knight. And it's just a shame it's locked behind a VR wall. I've read and listened to some reviews of like huge Batman fans, but I'll give some context through an IGN review. Batman Arkham Shadow does an admirable job of adapting almost everything I love about the Arkham series to work in a fully fledged VR game. And it's impressive looking for a game that's exclusive to the standalone MetaQuest 3 headset. There are a few hitches and aggravating bugs that mean some parts don't quite work as well as others, but its vigorous brawling, exploration, tricky puzzle solving and stealth are in full effect as you sneak and punch your way through the Blackgate prison in a twisting undercover pursuit of a mysterious cult leader where just about everybody's a suspect. It's certainly smaller in scale than any full game since Arkham Asylum, but it's far larger and more built out than you might expect after Batman Arkham VR. And a return to an enclosed prison setting makes it feel dense and intricate. So that's an 8 out of 10 from IGN. Game Rant, give it an 8 out of 10. Gaming Nexus, give it an 8 out of 10. Euro gave it 8 out of 10. So it seems to be
it's
8 out of 10 across the board.
On Metacritic, it's currently sitting at 83 Metascore from the critics, and all across 12 reviewers, all of them positive.
Yeah, which is great. Digital Trends, very short summary. Arkham Shadow is a great VR game. It's one of the best Batman games ever. So yeah, it just sucks that it's locked behind a MetaQuest 3. Obviously great for MetaQuest. That's what you want. Another cracking exclusive. What was the one? Was it Asgard? Something Asgard?
Asgard's
2?
Wrath.
Yeah, that hit out. So that's like year on year they've had 2 VR game of the years essentially. And I just have to sit here and lament, thinking as if we've got another entry in the Arkham universe 10 years after Rocksteady were done with it. And it isn't Suicide Squad, and it isn't Gotham Knights, but it is locked behind a totally new peripheral piece of hardware that I don't own or have the spare funds to buy or interest to purchase.
Is there something for us to be said, though, is while we would have preferred them to work on an actual console Batman Arkham game, that occasionally we have to take a Batman Arkham Shadows in order for VR to sustain itself. Because we also say there's not enough killer IP on VR that makes it worth investing in VR at the moment. So we can't have both arguments stand by side. We have to occasionally accept a game we prefer to not be VR become VR in order for there actually to be the IP there.
Yeah, it's not so much the IP being on VR. Like, if this was this being VR, I'd have no problem with that. It's the fact that we haven't had anything in the Arkham universe in over a decade. That's what sucks. If Suicide Squad was a Batman Arkham game and it came out and got 8s and 9s and it was a full open world Batman game like the previous entries, like Rocksteady should have just done, this would be like, oh great, those people who have VR, they're so lucky that they've got another entry in this. But the fact that it's the only entry in 10 years and there's seemingly nothing in the works to continue that franchise, that's what stings.
I don't like the exclusivity on this as well. The exclusive to Meta. Because it becomes, because there isn't enough games, like, not, I don't mean VR experiences, because there's millions of them and they're fantastic for what they are. I actually do like VR. When it comes to games that I think work better in VR than they do just on a PC, or general PC or console experience, there isn't enough of them, I think, for them to be this fragmented in terms of what platform. I think platform exclusivity needs to not exist in the VR space if it wants to really keep up, and because it needs to grow. It feels like it's stagnating. Yeah. As much as like a lot of the big tech companies are really relentlessly pushing it, my impression every time I see it is just eye roll. Like, you see, like, I think I saw a Meta Quest advert about I think someone went to the post office or the DMV or something, and it was sit down. I'm just going to sit down and watch a movie. It's like, literally no one does that. No one's doing that. And if you saw it, you think they were weirdos. Like, they're trying to, it feels like they're trying to find of why people would engage with VR rather than showing them. It's like, I don't know, I found that one weird.
It is. It's misplaced, mine. I think the only place I would ever really commit to VR in public would probably be on an aeroplane. When I'm on like a 9-hour flight, everyone's got face masks on, they're going to sleep, everyone's in their own little world anyway because you can't do anything for 9 odd hours. I think putting a VR headset on and just laying back and maybe watching a movie in VR, would probably be the most willing I would be in
then
public.
I think the form factor's wrong for that. Then you need a lot sleeker, slimmer device. Where
I can't speak for what how light or heavy the Meta Quest is anyway.
It's just the size. Just visually, the size is too. I think it's too chunky for that kind of thing, because you are carrying this massive thing around with you. So to have that, for me, if I was to use VR in a travel sense, where I'm sat in an airport because my plane's been delayed or not a long haul flight, it needs to be able to throw up small into my backpack along with any other stuff I've got in there. I think
you're not going to shrink your head down as well, are you?
Yeah. So when I'm looking at the Meta Quest advert and that woman sat down in the DMV, I just think it looked too chunky to carry around with you.
Yeah, you're not going to just sling it over your shoulder and lug it around like your PS2 in your back pocket used to be. You're right. It's fragmented. I think unfortunately they're all vying for being top dog, because it's such an emerging industry still to this day, even though it's been around for decades now. I think they're all waiting to beat out the competitors, and I think MetaQuest probably is the front runner right now, just because it doesn't have the console attached to it. It's cheaper, and I think little things like this do help. But you're completely right. Things like Half-Life Alyx being outside of just was it the Quest? Or was it Steam? Oculus was the Oculus one that had that.
Oculus became Meta.
Right, yeah. So I think that was that one. But everyone was like clambering for it on PSVR. Can you make that deal? Can you make it work? Can you make it work? And then by proxy the other way around, the Horizon games, now there's a PC adapter that's came out. We're maybe expecting more. But I think, they need to maybe all check themselves, have like a VR conference together. Hell, they could do it in VR. They could all just sit down in a big virtual conference room and go, right, this industry doesn't seem to be taking off as well as we all like it to. How can we work collaboratively to bring it up together? I do think the caveat to all this, though, is they all have such unique peripherals, like the PSVR 2 one sticks compared to the MetaQuest. There are slight intricate differences which take development time to do, which is why a lot of PSVR 1 games are not forwards compatible. Yeah. Because it's just the PS3 Move ones are just not the same as the new ones are. But
that's where
at least Batman Arkham's great.
This is why I think, because if you look at Sony with the DualSense and the DualShock 4, the touch bar, completely underutilized because it basically became a massive select button for third-party developers because they're developing for multiple platforms. But that's enough of VR. I'm glad to see this game because it looked awesome, to be honest.
It does. Elijah Wood does voice of Scarecrow.
Yeah.
Which I thought was like a nice, cool little tidbit that dropped.
I think for me, it alone, even with a few other things starting to pay attention to, like things like Asgard's Wrath, not enough to get me into VR with how limited time I have.
No.
But
looking at like the list, they've got Asgard's Wrath 2, Beat Saber, Resident Evil 4, Assassin's Creed Nexus, Arkham Shadow, Walking Dead Saints and Sinners, but then everything else is like golf VR or tennis VR or multiple versions of Beat Saber that aren't Beat Saber.
I'd take Resident Evil off that list, because if you're comparing it to time spent playing console games, you can play that game on the console. So it's not a unique experience. It's a different way of having the experience. Might even be the best way.
Power Wash Simulator.
But I also don't have a massive gaming PC to play games the best way possible. So
yeah.
Sonic X Shadow. I hate that. How Sonic X Shadow Generations. How do you say the X?
Cross
Sonic
Cross Shadow.
Sonic Cross Shadow Generations reviews are out. It sold 1 million copies in 24 hours.
Go Sonic. Gotta go fast.
He's selling fast.
I remember this game when it first came out being in like our local Curry's PC world at the time, and I think I played it briefly on an Xbox. And that's about my extent of knowledge goes for Sonic Generations. It was the one that jumped between the cute mini Sonic and the lanky-legged Sonic.
Yeah, so Sonic Generations was almost kind of a love letter to original Sonic. It kind of had the modern Sonic at the time and the traditional Sonic, and you're bouncing between the two. So they were actually both different characters in the game. The original Sonic was almost like a younger version of the 3D Sonic.
Baby Sonic.
Yeah. But I actually, because it incorporated some, you start off just playing Green Hill Zone as, classic Sonic.
Of course.
But for a game that is called Sonic Generations and is kind of, almost like a greatest hits of Sonic games to that point, I thought it's the perfect way to start. But I had a lot of love for Sonic Generations. I have no interest in Shadow, though.
I think Shadow is one of those characters that he's a bit beyond me. He was never in the anime show that I used to watch as a kid. He was never in the games I used to play as a kid. He's not in the movies yet. I have enjoyed the 2 Sonic movies so far. Yeah. And of course, this is where I guess it ties in with Sonic X Shadow Generations. It's a remake, but it's a remake where they've also added in a brand new character and brand new levels and ways to tackle the original levels using Shadow as his character with his time jump features and stuff. I've seen a lot of speedrunners now say with Shadow with his time freeze ability, you can shave precious seconds off your speedrun in this game, which kind of breaks the original game, but I guess it's a remake and it's its own entry.
I think speedrunners would have to consider the original and this version as separate games.
Separate, yeah. But to give a bit of context, again, reading from an IGN review who gave it a 9 out of 10, Sonic Cross Shadow Generations takes an already excellent game and spring jumps it to new heights at a blistering pace by doubling up the campaign length with creative level design, fantastic bosses, plenty of collectibles, and an appreciable graphical upgrade. While the brand new Shadow content isn't necessarily long on its own, it adds a nice change of pace to the collection of an all-time great Sonic stages Generations weird sentence already contained, and there's an exciting new story that's filled in as you explore the overworld for collectibles, activities and challenges. This bulked up remaster soars far and above previous enhanced versions we've gotten in the Sonic franchise, and hopefully will be the gold standard Sega holds itself to when deciding to bring back other Sonic games from the past. And weirdly enough, this ties in with Shadow being in the Sonic 3 movie that comes out next month.
I don't think that's really enough. I think that's absolutely
targeted. I mean, it's perfect timing, but at the same time, Keanu Reeves is the kind of taking his goodwill of video games into this. We saw Cyberpunk have a massive swell of interest because of Keanu Reeves. And we're just in this weird world where Sonic is seemingly back and everyone is giving it 8s and 9s out of 10s.
Do you think Keanu Reeves adds the character of Shadow for gamers like us who've played the early Sonic games, but outside the Sega Mega Drive ones didn't really delve much further? Do you think Keanu Reeves adds a bit of legitimacy to Shadow?
I think he brings the meme culture to it where people will buy it because he's in it. But yeah, I feel like there's a generation of Sonic fans that maybe aren't us.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Purely played 3D Sonic.
We're Gen 1 Sonic fans.
Yeah, and the fact that there's that delineation is a testament to, I guess, how Sonic's managed to claw himself into pop culture still, because arguably it doesn't deserve to be there as much as every other mascot maybe does.
Because he was the one who pushed Mario the hardest, but he also fell away when Mario made the jump to 3D with Mario 64. Sonic kind of fell away at that point.
The games from like late 90s onwards are terrible. I remember playing Sonic 3D, and it was so bad.
But that was like very, very early. That was like Sega Mega Drive for the Sega CD and stuff, wasn't it, to try and get it going? So they're very limited. But I know there's things like Sonic Adventures and stuff were quite well received. I didn't play. Sonic Boom was not.
They have a few Netflix shows as well.
Yeah, it feels like Sonic is floundering in the 7 out of 10 zone for a long time.
Yeah.
Where they're decent, but is it nostalgia that makes them decent? So I'm glad to see this getting a 9.
What was the one that came out? Oh, Sonic Frontiers was 2022, right? That was the open world game that reviewed okay, but a lot of people said the world just felt empty.
It looked a bit empty, to be honest.
And you always have that frustration of he almost always needs to find a rail to grind on or a track to run on. And it's like, so you've got this massive open world, but I'd love to see a Sonic game where they actually focus on his speed, giving him slow motion. So do like the opposite. So when he's going so fast, the world is actually in slow-mo. So when he comes up against a boss fight of loads of Robotnik robots, instead of you doing like the quick spin dash, it's actually slow everything down. And you have to like tactically go in and it's all happening super fast. But to you as the gamer on the sticks, it's intricate like puzzle slow fighting instead.
You could do that almost like as a meter. So he's going like, so once you go over a certain speed, your meter's full. You could press say L2, for example, and then he slows down and the meter starts ticking down. So you can have that precise platforming.
Yeah,
but
like just something a little bit different. With
Sonic games having an in-game clock as well, you could have the clock slow down. So it's like you're seeing things as Sonic sees them at his pace. That could be really cool.
I think it just, again, something, I'm sure they've thought of this and how it might not be able to implement as easy as I'm saying off the top of my head.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's great to see Sonic. Like, again, I'm a big Sonic fan. I just don't like the games, which is a weird thing to say. But yeah, I mean, I might check this one out at some point. I mean, I'm not adverse to checking out a new Sonic game, and I'll probably play it and really enjoy it. It is just that like there's so much stuff to play right now. I'm like, I've got the nostalgia for Sonic, but I don't need it. He's not in my current cycle of things that I'm interested in.
Yeah, I think you would enjoy Sonic Generations the same way I did when I played it, because you have the nostalgia for the like you've played Sonic Mania.
Yeah,
you have the nostalgia for like the 2D side scroller kind of platformer Sonic. So you get a lot of that, but then you get a taster of what a modern Sonic. Oh my god, that is awesome!
Right?
I'm sure I've seen that loads of times, but
probably, but
yeah.
Yeah, like that's how big of a Sonic fan I am, but not for the games. This is purely like I saw that and thought it looks like Green Hill Zone in a lovely like little diorama.
That is Green Hill Zone. That's the boss. That's the Green Hill Zone boss fight.
Yeah, I must have that. And but I don't play the games. I'm just a big fan of Sonic, which I guess why he survived so well. People just love a blue little hedgehog and like, you know what, he's cute and quirky enough.
Yeah, there's something about Sonic. It's one of them. You always feel like Sonic. There could be more to him.
Yeah.
It almost feels like for the last 20 years he hasn't quite figured out how to be a 3D platform hero. Because this whole thing being speed, not precision in the platforming.
Yeah. He's a perfect mascot. He's just not a great video game mascot.
Yeah.
If he was like a football team mascot, it'd be great. Could roll around and there's a ball on the pitch and get up and go, hey, get the crowd going with his massive gloves. But
Sonic Generations, 9 out of 10. And to be honest, priced well on Amazon. It's currently discounted on Amazon at the moment, but its RRP is $49.99. Mm-hmm. Not a bad price, to be honest. If I had more time on my hands, I might have, and some money that I didn't spend building a new office, I might have considered. Yeah, time and money.
Both things Sonic has in ample.
But if this comes to something like PlayStation Plus or Game Pass in the future, I can see in a year's time this coming to PS5 on Game Pass.
Yeah, it's definitely...
No, not coming to PS5 on Game Pass.
I know what you mean.
On PlayStation Plus, and that might be when I play it.
Yeah, well, I think I'll check it out as well.
Yeah. I think we move on to Crimson Desert.
Tasty.
Tasty. Crimson Desert is not going to be a PlayStation exclusive. Going to be perfectly honest, Chris, completely forgot about this game.
Can you remember it though? This was the one we saw, I think it was at last year's Game Awards, and it started off like, oh, it's just another generic fantasy world, and then the guy jumps off a cliff and turns into some kind of like Harry Potter Dementor crow shadow creature, and everyone went, that looks cool as all hell.
Right, yeah,
And
I remember this.
It got more into combat, and it has like a not a sci-fi element, but almost like an Assassin's Creed element, where there's something about the space between spaces is fractured, and then you could like drop in from the sky, and all of a sudden, yeah, everyone, like what you and me included, and everyone watching along at home was like, there's something about this.
It's that when we ferment sometimes, when we watch like I don't know, like PlayStation showcases and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes everything feels a bit generic. They had that one thing that made you go, oh, that's doing something interesting, which you don't get a lot.
Yeah.
It has that one thing that makes you go, there's the thing that makes this game stand out.
Yeah.
Even though I did forget about it.
This is Pearl Abyss, who are the South Korean developers who already do the Crimson Desert Online, which is like their massive open world MMO style one. And when they were making this particular version of the game, or this new entry, I should say, these are the ones who actually peeled it back from multiplayer and went, no, it's going to be a single player. So it's like the devs are almost like saying the right things to show like they know what they've got on their hands. They've doubled down on single player. They've got rid of the online element because that's what their other game's for. And then, yeah, they showcased it off and everyone was like, damn, this looks gorgeous. And I think a lot of people are saying like this could be the game that fills the gap for The Witcher.
Yes.
While we wait another 5 years until CD Projekt get that sorted out. And the rumours of this story were saying that the PlayStation had been having conversations around an exclusively deal. And looking at this, it strikes me as like, yeah, this could be one I could see Sony segmenting in maybe next summer to be a filler gap between their own first-party games. But the Crimson Desert's one of them where it looks generic as all hell initially, but then the more you watch it, you're like, you know what? I could maybe go for some Crimson Desert after this hefty meal. Interestingly,
you mentioned about Sony trying to get exclusivity. It's alleged that Pearl Abyss turned down the offer because they felt they'd be better positioned to take a bigger piece of the pie for themselves. I actually do like that. It shows that they've got the confidence in their game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Rather than taking the big bag of cash that's readily available and go, you know what?
Mm-hmm.
We think we've got something good here. Let's back ourselves.
Yeah. And I think it's one of those where looking at the game, as long as it stays action heavy and doesn't lean into Dark Souls territory,
yeah,
this could be a big winner for the third parties.
It needs to have
some good stuff coming out of South Korea at the moment. If you think about Stellar Blade as well,
it needs to get the combat hit that sweet spot of combat where I think there is challenge there.
Mm-hmm.
But not the sort of challenge where, like a Soulsborne game, where you feel like you're banging your head over against a wall for half an hour for 5 minutes to release. It feels like maybe when you come up with a boss fight, you've got one or two goals to kind of figure it out and go, right now I've got it. This is my strategy.
Yeah.
And then move on to keep the story ticking over.
Yeah, needs to do something right.
Get a good like kind of medieval fantasy story running through this and keep it focused on that. You can have side quests and stuff there, but don't let the open world take over too much, because that's where I think a lot of like games just kind of fall apart, where you realise you spent 20 hours just doing stuff in the open world, side quests and collectibles, and you go, what's the story again?
Yeah, where am I at? Who am I saving this time around?
You need I think it's a challenge, that balance of open world where you need the open world to keep you driving back into the main narrative, which is what The Witcher 3 does so well. Yeah,
it's got a lot going for it. I'm very excited to see. We'll probably see more at this year's Game Awards, in all honesty.
It feels right. I mean, if it's starting to come back up in conversation now, it does feel... It's a 2025 game, I believe.
They've not given any additional information on release date yet, but the articles around the topic seem to suggest that, there's going to be something imminent. I think there were rumours it was going to be playable this November at one of the... Is it Paris Games Week, I think we have, maybe? I'm not sure. There's some events coming up before the end of the year, and my guess is, Game Awards. I wouldn't be surprised to see a release date and maybe like another trailer at the Game Awards to really start hyping this up.
Yeah, well, I hope it as well. It's quite a bold thing. It's kind of nice them doing the opposite to what a game companies are doing at the moment, rather than going, how do we make this as a game, online games as a service? They're going, no, how do we make this not?
How do we not do this?
Yeah. Moving on now, Alan Wake expansion, Chris, the Lake House. You've played it. You've played the entire DLC on stream.
Yeah, available now. People go check it out. Perfect for Halloween. You don't need to have played the Alan Wake game either to enjoy this DLC. In fact, if you played Control, this DLC is probably more akin to that. So
would you say this feels like it should have been more DLC for Control if it wasn't that Alan Wake was the more recent game?
Not necessarily, because they're so intrinsically tied now together. In the lead up to the next Control 2 entry. It's they're all just kind of part of the Remedy-verse. It doesn't really matter what the title of the game is for me. But yes, the Alan Wake 2 DLC came out this week. It's the last entry, so now Alan Wake 2 is complete. The Lake House expansion is the last expansion, along with the Night Springs content we got a couple of months ago. And really interesting enough, actually, Rich, I didn't realise during my playthrough, but after the fact, if you've never played Alan Wake 2 before, so I know you and the girlfriend are probably going to check it out at some point, what it does with the DLC is it actually takes it and it blends it in with the main campaign story seamlessly.
Okay.
So you can play them as standalone. You can just go into the menu and expansions an option, and you can just play Night Springs or you can play this. But what they've done is in the main campaign, there's a version called the Final Draft, which is Remedy's final take on Alan Wake's story. Is the content for both the Lake House and the Night Springs is woven in as optional, but it's part of the main campaign story. So it wouldn't feel out of place in hindsight either. Having played it all completely, it wouldn't feel out of place. It's like a little side caveat. So I'll be interested to see your take on it when you do get round to it. But in terms of it, I mentioned it right at the beginning of the show. But yeah, looks gorgeous. They've got the eeriness right. The villains are right. You do play as Agent Estevez, which I don't think you'll have met in Alan Wake 1 yet. She's basically an FBC agent, similar to how Jesse Faden ends up in Control.
Yeah, because there's no mention of the FBC in Alan Wake 1. That was pre-Control, so...
Yeah. But with this, it's new character. She's investigating a lake house, which is like a satellite facility of the Federal Bureau of Control. And there's some research going on. Research turns out to be dodgy as shit, which inevitably leads to world-altering events. And she goes in with her team to investigate, and stuff happens. It's very typical horror. You go down in the facility, everything's on a different level. You find key cards, they unlock new areas, they unlock more villains, and the story progresses through that. But very interesting, very trippy, very Alan Wake as well. And I had an absolute blast with it, and it made me want to keep playing Alan Wake and then lament the fact that I've probably got another 8, 9, 10 years wait for a third entry, or hopefully not too long for Control 2.
Yeah, that's the thing.
That's kind of what we're getting at.
It might be 6, 7 years before Alan Wake 3, but if it's a year and a half before Control 2, it bridges the gap.
It does indeed.
Is it Max Payne the other one as well?
No, it's Max Payne's separate. That's Rockstar in partnership with them. You're thinking of Quantum Break.
Quantum Break,
which is the Xbox exclusive. That's the one that's not officially tied to anything yet. However, there's a character who shows up a lot in Alan Wake 2, who is played by Iceman from the X-Men. I don't know the actor's name. I'll just call him Iceman. He's the main character in Quantum Break. So the actor is in Alan Wake 2, but not by name. But it's very much a case of, like, it's the dude. It's the dude from Quantum Break. Yeah. He's even called, like, Tim Breaker, I think, which is like, come on. Like, how on the nose can you get?
I feel this is where Microsoft maybe just need to relinquish their rights to that.
They do.
Set a number that is reasonable and just go, you know what? Or even just go, we'll take 1% of your profits, like, for any mention of this game.
Make a Game Pass deal. Say, like, you can have Alan Wake 2 exclusive on Game Pass earlier than PlayStation will if you just give us the IP for Quantum Break back.
It's like, if you give us the IP for the next 3 Remedy games, you can have them on. You can have them on Game Pass or something. Just there feels like they've got to get in the room and figure it out.
I do. I need to go play Quantum Break as well. It's the one Remedy universe game that I've not played yet because it was on Xbox, but I do have it installed on my Series S ready to go.
I need to play Control.
And Alan Wake 2, in all honesty. But
I want to play Control first, though.
Yes, I would recommend that as well. And the DLC, because the DLC for Control it ties in with Dr. Hartman from Alan Wake 1.
Yeah.
So it is all like in the stitch together. And this is what goes back to Remedy of why I loved Alan Wake 2 so long as that peeling back the layers of going like, these developers are so smart and talented at how they've basically made their own version of the MCU, either intentionally or unintentionally. And no other video game does this. And it's brilliant. But back to the Control news is that at the end of the Alan Wake DLC, there's a certain area you can get to, which is something that features in Control, and there's a character that shows up who's basically saying like, it looks like Control 2's imminent. And we've knew this, again, as two people who've covered the industry. We've known this for quite some time, but this is like the official. Like, it might as well just be a trailer for Control.
Yeah.
So go check it out. I don't want to spoil it, so I'm not going to say anything.
Yeah,
but there's a lot of stuff. It leans towards the location, and it looks like Control 2 might take place in New York, as opposed to inside the oldest house. It looks like they might be expanding it beyond like a confined area. And I think they're going to be using a lot of Alan Wake 2 assets, because there's parts of Alan Wake 2 that could maybe look like New York. So
wouldn't it be cool if there was something like a few more things like the oldest house in different major cities around the world, and they were all somehow connected so you could bounce between them?
Well, I think also, Remedy being Remedy, remember we've got FBC Firebreak that was announced at Xbox Partnership. So we've got a first-person shooter in Control's world that's coming out. Did they say the date for it? Or did they just announce it?
Don't believe they did.
It must be soon. Oh, consoles in 2025, PC and console in 2025. And it's in Game Pass as well. So there's that Quantum Break deal. Microsoft, we gave you FBC Firebreak. Can we have Quantum Break back, please? Interesting. So yeah, my guess is like springtime next year we'll have Firebreak. And even though it's a first-person shooter, so I'm not expecting big reveals, there'll be Easter eggs.
There'll be Easter eggs, and because Remedy is so fixated on building out this universe, there'll be stuff in FBC Firebreak that just enhances the lore. Probably through like mechanics and things that go, okay, now they've established this sort of mechanic in that universe, they can use it in a single player narrative as well.
Yeah. I'm just looking at the trailer for Firebreak. I didn't realise it looks like there's a weapon that shoots post-it notes at people. There's a room and a dead body all covered in post-it notes, the little yellow sticky ones. Which makes me think, is there like a world-altering event that empowers post-it notes into bullets, perhaps?
Post-it notes are important.
They are. They leave very important memos. Until they roll up and the glue stops working, then they just take the piss.
Yeah. Or you get the pre-printed ones where the company's logo is way too like saturated. You can't see anything you write on it.
Yeah. But yeah, 3-player co-op experience. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. But yeah, Alan Wake 2, fantastic. Control, fantastic. Remedy, fantastic. These developers, man, brilliant.
But do you think Rayman's fantastic, Chris?
I did back in the day. Rayman's like another Sonic for me.
Well, there's a new Rayman allegedly in early development with the remnants of the Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown team, this is kind of a double story, really. What's going on at Ubisoft with this?
I don't know. We know Ubisoft realistically probably need to downsize because they've got way too many employees for the size and the output that the company does, and where their stocks are at, and just the success of their recent entries like Star Wars Outlaws probably sold millions less than they were anticipating, which means their revenue, shares, everything will be down. But yeah, the studio that previously worked on Rayman Legends released earlier this year Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, which was the really well-reviewed...
Yeah, very critically acclaimed. Don't know how well it did financially, but...
Yeah, it's the almost like Metroidvania, hack and slash platformer. Got DLC. I think it actually comes out this month, or maybe next month, the expansion for it. The rumours are they've basically shuttered that studio, like all that team's been disbanded. So I don't know if they've laid them off or they've just like spread them to the wind. But apparently they're now working on something called Project Steambot, which is going to be a new Rayman title, which it makes sense if they were the previous team that did Rayman Legends, which was a really good game. And then they've obviously took a break and did something different in Prince of Persia, which was received well. So clearly they make good games. They're maybe just not financially enough for Ubisoft. We've seen that happen with EA, right, where they get great little indie titles, but they don't make the millions which these big corporations want or expect. So they just go, oh, well, we'll move on to the next thing.
This is where when we were talking the other week about Ubisoft potentially no longer publicly trading or being encouraged to not. This is where I think these sort of decisions are easier when you are a private company, because when you publicly trade anything, you can't really vet who's buying shares And anytime people buying shares, especially if they're buying significant numbers, you're at the leadership team's at the mercy of their decision making as well. You've got to make them happy. And if it is just someone who sees this as a way of growing their stock portfolio and wants a dividend payment every year, and it is purely a financial investment for them, then something like The Lost Crown might do really well critically. Everyone who plays it might love it, but if it doesn't have the sort of profit margin, it might even be profitable, but if it doesn't have the level of profit margin these people are wanting, then that's going to go, why are you wasting your time on this?
Yeah.
Which is a shame for a creative industry. This is all speculation, to be honest, but
yeah,
it just
looks
seems
like the rumour looks like the team's moved on to... They put some of them on Beyond Good and Evil, whatever that's going on with that. The next Ghost Recon game, whatever that looks like, and then seemingly the Rayman title. So it looks like they've shrunk some of them down, they've disbanded some of them, sent them elsewhere. And this is, I guess, part of working in a global development structure, that they can just move you and move your assets and move your projects, because Ubisoft have development companies, teams, like literally nearly every country in the world, I think, has a Ubisoft team now. So yeah, I guess if this doesn't do well, they go, hey, you are a talented artist or environmental person or whatever, and they just go, we need some support on this game, pick you up. If you're working remotely as well, and go, yeah, this is your new team, this is what you're working on, get cracking, then unfortunate, but at least you've not been laid off.
Yeah, and there might even be things in place with Ubisoft being so widespread that they'll probably utilise a lot of like cloud processing and a lot of like modern communications technology. So some of these people might actually just be walking into the same office every single day.
Yeah.
But the team that they're working with is now no longer... most of that team might literally be in the same building, but they're now all parts of different teams.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's hard to know, but Rayman, good choice for Ubisoft.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I agree 100%. It's like Rayman's almost the Ubisoft mascot, to be honest.
I mean, yeah, they don't stick with an Assassin's Creed one beyond Ezio for more than one game, do they? So we don't really get that consistency.
Assassin's Creed is clearly the big franchise, but in terms of a mascot, it's Rayman for me.
Yeah, I think it is. I think you're right. But yeah, and seemingly in a renaissance of mascots that we're having at the moment, why not bring it back?
Exactly. So it's... I don't know. I really still want Ubisoft. I think Ubisoft need to find what Ubisoft for the next 10, 20 years it needs to be. It still feels like they're in the 2010s version of Ubisoft.
Yeah, I think they need to, if they can go private and just scale down a little bit and get back to remembering what made them great, which was being like industry leaders. They've still got Assassin's Creed, they've still got Far Cry, they've still got IP that's going to bring them in the money, so they're definitely not struggling.
I don't even know if they need to scale down. I think they almost need to restructure it. So you have almost like, here is the Assassin's Creed. This is the team or teams that are doing Assassin's Creed here. He's the Tom Clancy team. He's like the smaller stuff that maybe will do a 2D side-scroller Rayman, maybe doing like Prince of Persia, Lost Crown stuff. So kind of separate these things so they're not where they're not comparable. Because comparing Prince of Persia, Lost Crown against Assassin's Creed is just stupid. The scope of these is just massively different. So if you have these under different leadership structures, whose priorities are different, it could get the best out of the individual teams.
Looking at the size of the company, though, Ubisoft has, as of March 2024, they have 19,000 employees. EA has 13.5.
If they're producing enough content to warrant that, though, it's not a problem.
But I don't think they are. That's the problem. They're not.
Yeah.
Right? What have they put out this year? Skull and Bones and Prince of Persia.
Yeah.
And Star Wars Outlaws. So 3 entries, all of which seemingly have underperformed. Like Skull and Bones was dead on the water on arrival. Prince of Persia seemingly not enough to keep the studio team together, and Outlaws is massively, massively undersold. So that's another bad year trying to support 19,000 plus people.
Yeah, maybe they do. See, I'm reluctant to say they need to scale down because I don't like to see people lose their jobs.
Oh, absolutely not.
But
It just seems like they're so bloated with obviously like people's. You've got to remember people's like annual wage, and then all of like the other fun stuff that comes in with it, like the studios, the buildings, the leases, the dental, healthcare, pension, all that kind of stuff adds up massively. And if your £70 game isn't selling, that's £70 per unit you're not getting in the door. Your shares are plummeting. It just seems like there has to be that reset point, and I think the Yooka Malt family obviously want to look after everyone. Seemingly, they always seem to come from a good place. It's just they're not hitting it. So
yeah, I feel I'm giving the Yooka family a bit of a pass at the moment because I think it's more sometimes outside investors that are putting pressure. If they had full control and didn't have to worry about like the bank balances of outside investors who were only interested in the gaming industry for profit, and then they were making some of the decisions that they're currently making, I'd judge them based on that. But because I do know there's definitely people who invest in Ubisoft only for a profit.
Yeah.
That means that, and some of these people like will be owning a lot of shares as well. So this is why I think a lot of Ubisoft decision making has been more to go for more games as a service. It's been to go for like what were they called? NFTs. How can we milk our gamers? But then the standard of games has slipped.
NFTs.
They need to get back to being. Assassin's Creed Shadows, I think, is a very important game for Ubisoft because that needs to be in the Game of the Year conversation. It needs to not be. I think it needs to be going up and going to be like, okay, Assassin's Creed Shadows out in February, it's ours to lose for the rest of the year. That's where I think that game needs to be landing for me with Ubisoft. Star Wars Outlaws came nowhere close. Decent game, but that's Ubisoft though. They're just decent.
Yeah, good games, bad decisions.
Yeah. Indeed. Do you think it's a bad decision, though, Chris, that Guerilla apparently done with Killzone?
Yes and no. I think so. This comes from the Washington Post, where the the creative team were interviewed about upcoming games and the collaboration with Horizon, making the Lego Horizons game, and inevitably someone asked them what happened to Killzone, and I think it's called Posma. I'm not sure if it was full. Roy Posma, sorry. Guerilla's one of the creative art directors said, we're done with Killzone as a team, as a studio. We needed to refresh the palette. It was by the choice, the opposite of Killzone with the creation of Horizon. I think the themes that the story and the characters represent are relatable to all ages and people, like having a family and friends, finding your place in the world, developer said. So it seems like, they pivoted away to obviously making Horizon, which was a completely different side of the spectrum to what Killzone was, gritty sci-fi futuristic shooter, to robot dinosaurs. I guess robot dinosaurs isn't too much of a stretch, but in terms of the game,
futuristic as well,
third person open world, I get what he's saying. I personally am like a massive fan of the Killzone franchise. I think there's still a place for it. It's just typical with a lot of Sony IP. Don't just let it die, though. Just pass it on to someone. Hire a second-party studio and go, like, look, here's a little nest egg of money. Take Killzone, make something with it. And it's one of them where I feel like if PlayStation did that, they could have, like, surprise hits on the hand that don't take much effort. Give the franchise that seemingly, for all intents and purposes, you think is dead because you're not using it. So give it to someone who's passionate about maybe first-person shooters. They've got the franchise, which hopefully will give them a bit of goodwill. The nostalgia, which should give them a bit of goodwill. And if they can make a competent shooter, Sony could have like a surprise like Helldivers on their hands where everyone like flocks to this game. And if it doesn't do great, you've not lost a ton of stuff because the franchise was dead anyway. But I think rather than dropping another Concord of a new IP that you're trying to make a games as a service, take something that has an existing fan base in this genre, has a cool premise in the Killzone world, fighting the Hellgas, which are essentially space Nazis, and give it a modern paint, like give it a modern game. We haven't had a Killzone game since PS3. Shadowfall at the opening of the PS4. So it's been a minute.
Yes, I think it's right actually for Guerrilla to be done with the franchise.
I agree.
I think with Horizon they've stumbled on to what that studio is now. That studio is Horizon. It's becoming a bigger IP, so it's not just a one-off game every few years. It's Lego games, it's movies, it's potentially MMOs. that game's expanding. So, to be honest, that is what Guerilla is now. Full stop, going forward. And it probably is what it should be. The advantage within the Sony ecosystem is that all these studios do talk to each other. So something like a Killzone can be handed over to another developer, and Guerrilla can still have input into it, into the things like the law, into play decisions, so they can help oversee it without actually doing the work. I don't think Killzone stands on the same level as something like, say, an Uncharted, where I think Naughty Dog would really struggle to hand that over to a different studio. Killzone, I think, can be just passed on quite easily.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. Reading from the Killzone PlayStation 2 first game to give you a concept. How cool is this? In times of war, do not crave honour. Do not pray for order, amity, or surrender. Ask only that you outlive the day. That's the tagline for the original one. Epic saga of invasion and retaliation, drawing inspiration from best-known real war scenarios of our time, utilise an armory of merciless weaponry, perceptive AI, intelligent adversaries react like proper military units to bring you down. Breathtaking single-player and multiplayer games. I think that would be similar to what we just praised Call of Duty for. I think just a short campaign, just an 8-hour campaign, and some capable multiplayer. I think it would do quite well with a modern skin on it.
You could, to be honest, you could even get rid of the campaign. Sacrilege as a single-player gamer. You could just turn this into the multiplayer, or the campaign could be online co-op. So you can play it single player, or you can play it in your squad, and it is, and you just reformat what a Killzone is. And guess what? Sony have got Bungie there, so even if Bungie aren't the lead developers on it, they're a team that could very much be providing some very good input. People like the gunplay and things like Destiny, amazing. Like on par, I reckon, with Call of Duty. You've got them.
Yeah, give or take, yeah.
So even if they're not the lead developer, you've got Guerilla, who invented the franchise, who can help you look after the law. You've got Bungie, who know what the hell they're doing with a first-person multiplayer shooter. You can get a team that's passionate about Killzone, that has a good vision for it, somewhere in the middle, and just talking to them two teams.
Yeah, I think so. And they've got a couple of VR studios as well that have done competent VR shooters, but because of VR, they've just not really taken off. Can't remember what it was called, the really successful one. Not Firebreak, Firestorm, Fire something. There was a really common VR one that was played really well, but it was just stuck in VR.
Maybe you're creating a way where it can play played with or without VR.
Yeah. And by proxy of this conversation, it's the same stuff for Resistance. Like, you have a great shooter franchise that's sat dormant there. Insomniac is so caught up at the moment doing
they're the superhero guys now, aren't they?
Yeah, like so they've obviously
studios redefined, like Guerrilla, what they are.
Yeah, give it to these. Give it to Blue Point or Nix or something. I just want to point out from this, by the way, from the booklet, which I love old school booklets. It's the Hellgas News, which is from the planet Vector in it.
That's awesome.
So they're saying about, like, it's war at the start, or it looks like raw in the reverse camera. But the introduction, the first page, talking about the consoles, it says record auction price for rare console, and it's actually telling you about setting up your PS2. But because of the time frame in which this world takes place, the PS2 would be basically an old piece of technology.
At the time this podcast's taking place, it's an old piece of technology.
It is. I mean, yeah, it is. Setting up your auction price. Look, other news, memory card as well. So it's actually got it laid out like it's a proper news report. Other news, network adapter, statistics, casualties versus months, but it's talking about your controller features. Yeah, love it. Like, Rockstar did really well with this kind of thing as well. Getting to know the latest recruits, but it's doing it like it's a news article about characters. You don't get this stuff anymore. And ironically enough, because of the age of the game, surrender your details and win a limited edition PS2 and a year's free broadband with BT
Nice.
in the UK. So there's actually a style like surrender your details. Could you imagine that marketing campaign today?
That would probably work better nowadays. I think because it's quite tongue-in-cheek, quite almost punk rock about it. Like,
unlike the hellish battle you have ahead of you, we're giving you the chance to get your hands on some great prizes without great effort. Just complete these questions and details on the form and stick it shut, then pop it in the post. There's no need for a stamp. Or go to Killzone.com. to win a year's worth of free BT broadband. Well, there you go.
That's brilliant.
But I think there's lots of old franchises Sony have that I think could be redeemed. We just need them to maybe stop sitting on them so much and just let them go. Like you said, Guerilla don't care. So
it might just be internally. All the studios are busy doing other stuff. So there's no team that's come with it as a passion project went to Sony. Went, I know this franchise is with them, but we'd love to work on it. Like, can we do something here?
Yeah. Just need to be patient, really, don't we?
Yeah.
They'll come back eventually. That's the thing. They will come back.
Yeah. Talking about being patient. A few weeks ago, we broke news of some leaks over at Nintendo and a mysterious Switch Online playtest. There's a few more leaks coming out, and this potentially could be a Super Mario MMO. I have no idea what that would mean. How? I'm lost for words. I don't even understand.
I mean, yeah, this is a play test, so we presume it's going to be for the Switch 2. It's so all we know is you get like it essentially looks like you get a social hub where your character will live. It's essentially the Miiverse, but with Mario Land or the Mushroom Kingdom instead. I've not seen any image of this because they all keep getting pulled from social media, but because again they're all under NDA and Nintendo
there's nothing going to be up on
with
the screen right now.
But it's that thing where I was like, yeah, I guess if you make your character and just live in the Mushroom Kingdom, like, if anyone's got this, Nintendo can do it. It says it's a MMO sounding game which features blocky Minecraft-esque worlds. Players were told they'll need to work together to develop a massive planet utilizing creativity and farmed resources, with new lands, enemies, and resources appearing while the player progresses. Another image describes special tools called beacons, which would heal the land. Meanwhile, the playtest features a social hub where players can interact with each other. So it looks like it's like a Mario-inspired survival Minecraft-y game.
You know what? This could actually just be a complete, utter red herring where Nintendo have had a handful of ideas how like a fully online Nintendo game might work. They've slapped the Mario IP on it for the sake of the playtest and just testing various different mechanics.
But yeah,
in
again,
a shared world. This could be Animal Crossing.
Could be.
Because that's the sort of thing I think could work in an MMO space. You have your own little your own little village. A bit down the road, there's someone else's village. Trade some carrots, whatever you do in Animal Crossing. But it's just interesting. It's one of them I think it's worth keeping an eye on, because the fact that they're testing something like this is good news for the Switch 2, because the online features on the Switch are terrible.
Yeah.
They're just so behind the times. The fact that you need to connect a phone to your headset to have like communications online is ridiculous.
Yeah, we'll hear more, I think, as time passes and it gets
Indeed.
closer. Because those NDAs don't mean shit to a lot of people.
Yeah,
unfortunately.
A few quick ones to go through now, Chris. Croc is coming back, and he's
we knew about that. We knew about Croc coming back, but now we know he's coming to console as well. Argonaut are back with Croc. He's got modern controls, which I think is the smartest thing. The original Croc had like tank controls, and in today's world, you cannot get away with a 3D platform with that shitty control mechanism.
I'd love it if when you boot up the game, it gives you modern controls and tank controls as an option. Just leave them in there if anyone wants them for no one to use.
They even refer to it in the game as smoother modern controls, so that the devs know. Which I'm interested to see for the platforming. It probably makes the game a hell of a lot easier, because I remember playing it back in the day, and a lot of the times you die, it's just because of the bad controls.
Yeah, they've had to design. You have to design your platforming around your control scheme, because for the difficulty curve,
the game probably took a lot longer to play because you had to like straighten your camera up every time you want to jump somewhere. You had to straighten it and then get it right and then hit jump.
You didn't have a right analog stick when the first Croc came out.
Yeah,
you didn't even have a left one. So you were trying to play 3D gaming with a D-pad, which is why tank controls basically existed.
It's like Tomb Raider and Resident Evil. They're all like, for the time they worked, but they're so, like, by modern standards, they're so bad.
Yeah. Yooka-Replaylee remaster is coming to PS5, Xbox with a suspicious tease for Nintendo platforms.
Which, remember, it's called Yooka-Replaylee.
Yooka-Replaylee
is its official name, which is so bad it's good in a way. Yeah, I enjoyed Yooka-Laylee the first time I played. I didn't finish it because I don't
Me
have
either.
I don't have that affinity for like Mario 64 and stuff and Banjo-Kazooie like a lot of people do. But I could see it. I could see the fun in that. It was the voices that really just irritated me. After a while, I was like, "Oh my god, shut up!"
It's a spiritual successor to Banjo. But
I think it would have genuinely been cuter if they just both give them a voice, like an actual voice, like a Pixar movie, and animated out the cutscenes rather than that.
I mean, this is not a Nintendo game, but that's still something Nintendo haven't done.
It
really.
is, yeah.
Voice acting in games, like as much as I love Echoes of Wisdom, it's death by text box at times.
Yeah. I think that's where, as a modern gamer, I think that's why I don't resonate so much with a lot of the Nintendo games still, because I've grown up to a point where, because I didn't have them as a child, I almost like don't have that level of patience that you probably do have.
Link should be mute though.
Yeah.
There's some
Cut
characters,
out his tongue.
but with Link, they found a way, even in the dialogue, of like just when he speaks in Getting Well, you don't hear him speak, and you don't really even get to see what he said. Mm-hmm. It's just usually ... but you know what he's saying through context. Yeah. So I think they found a way, but it'd be nice to have more voice acting in general in Nintendo games, and spiritual successor to Rare games.
Yeah. I guess the tidbit nugget here is in the release on Nintendo platforms for Yooka-Laylee Remastered is
plural.
It doesn't say Switch, plural. It says platforms. Yeah. So again, we know the Switch 2's got to come next year, right? So no surprises. We head towards Christmas. People are going to start marketing these cross-gen Nintendo titles as like, yeah, we can tease it.
It might even. It'd be interesting to see how well it runs on the Switch, because it's quite graphically intense, even though it's like quite cartoony.
Yeah, but it's what, 2017, so it's had a couple of years to kind of just dull down, I guess, optimize.
It has indeed, but that is the end of the podcast, and we like to end the show every single week with this week in video game history. So for October 27th, Chris, what are you looking at?
What a day. Where do I even start with this one? I guess chronologically, not much happened a long time ago.
Tony Hawk's Underground 21 years ago.
Yeah, that's how long ago it was. Yeah, Tony Hawk's Underground, 27th of October 2003. WWE SmackDown, Here Comes the Pain. I think this is the era when I really started getting into my WWE games as well, where they started to get really, really good. SmackDown versus Raw, shout out.
Little Big
PlayStation
Planet.
3, 16 years ago, 2008. Little Big Planet, the original, launched on PlayStation 3. That was revolutionary as well for the time. I remember when we used to play around my parents' house, we used to do Little Big Planet multiplayer, and it was the levels with the bombs and the sharks. And I think it was like these are just custom-made levels. Yeah. And we used to have an absolute laugh just all trying to get to the finish line while getting blew up and ragdolled around the crazy world of that.
It's a shame that it feels like a dead IP nowadays, Little Big Planet.
Yeah, Sackboy will be back. He'll come back and kill Astrobot. League of Legends.
Yeah, 15 years ago.
on PC. That's huge. Keep going down. It just kind of gets better in recent years. And Crank.
Ratchet and Clank. A cracking time.
Yeah.
Torchlight for the PC. Amazing game.
7 years ago, Assassin's Creed Origins, which was the reboot of the Assassin's Creed franchise. I think that was a really pivotal point for Ubisoft, and I think they did really, really well to expand into the open world RPG a bit more. Also launched the same day as Super Mario Odyssey. Ironically, you could get Odyssey and Origins at the same day, and Assassin's Creed Odyssey would follow a few years later. Actually, the next year, I think, chronologically.
Alan Wake 2 a year ago.
And then, rounding things out, solid I guess go full circle for this episode as well. We opened up talking about Alan Wake DLC that we've played. And a year ago today, this time last year, I was sat playing Alan Wake 2. That's crazy. And my eyes were open. Remember when I hadn't played it at all? The first one, I did remastered maybe a few weeks leading up to 2.
Because we were talking Alan Wake, a stupid name, and now you're like,
it still is a stupid name.
Give me more Alan Wake.
I do still wonder if this because I think Control sells better than Alan Wake because of the name. Yeah. Because you're not associated to like just a random dude called Alan. And I think if this had like a more quirky horror, maybe based play on words type of name, it probably would do better as a franchise. Because I do generally think the average consumer who's used to the Call of Duties and the FIFAs looks at that and goes, on a list of games, why would look at the list right in front of me, Richie? Star Ocean: The Divine Force, Super Robot Wars, The Legend of Heroes, Wolfenstein 2, Super Mario Odyssey, Assassin's Creed Origins, Berserker and the Band of Hawk, whatever the hell that was, Halo Guardians, and then I've got Alan Wake.
Yeah, it just falls apart.
Which is a shame, but obviously they can go back on it now. They should. In a way, they should have probably called the sequel something. Then Alan Wake 2 should have been like the sub. You know, like try and hide it a little bit and get away from it. But that's what Control's for, I guess. They could have called it Control 2, Alan Wake, and then Control 3 could have been the next one. But
the thing is, they might phase out the Alan Wake part of like the Remedy verse. So maybe there's a trilogy of Alan Wake games, and then there's no more Alan Wake as the Remedy verse takes on a life of its own.
But it's still my game of the year for 2023.
Well, yeah, you can't really.
So it doesn't take away from it. Yeah, call it whatever you want. It's still a phenomenal game. And,
but I think
really
that is all we have time for. If you've liked the video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring that bell so you're kept in the all our fantastic content here at GamerGuildTV, such as Call of Duty, such as what else we were playing. Oh, you mentioned Indiana Jones. You've got maybe gone for members.
It was a spoiler, but if anyone stuck around for 1 hour 40, then there's maybe some Indiana Jones content coming exclusively for members, leading him to the launch of Indiana Jones and the Great Circle next month, which again is just over 4 weeks away. So I need to get them in the bag. But yeah, Indiana Jones, a couple of older titles if you're a fan of the retro games. Stay tuned for that, Guild Heroes.
And if you want to see proof that I'm doing manual labour, head over to the link in the description where you can find our Discord server. And thank you very much for watching. My name's been Richie.
I've been Chris.
GG everyone. Goodbye.
Bye.